and it's really interesting to travel and see what's going on around the world. At the same time, I was uh, pleasantly surprised to see all of the financial activity going on. There's a lot of people are still traveling. You get a feel, you get a sense about what's going on a global basis, and so I still sense it's very positive, which is kind of a good news, I think. Um, but back at home now, it's also kind of good to get a pulse on what other people view America as and our country. It's always good to get a feel for that, and we are still respected, I think, in the world economically. But as I look at both the economy now and where everything is going, where we are, it's still one of those tricky places we're at right now. Interest rates are coming down, so that's good news. We've had a couple of days of down markets, but we're still, up there on market highs across the board. So remember, stock markets always look 4 to 6 months in advance. That's kind of what they're gauging their pricing on equities. And what's really still driving it to nobody's surprise is the AI opportunity. NVIDIA, as I've always said, is one of the key areas that garners a lot of attention, obviously. Let me turn my phone off so it doesn't interrupt us. I've been getting a lot of calls since I'm back today. Um, and there's a lot of action going on with smaller companies that are starting to innovate. Now, one of the big things that happened, I don't know if everybody saw this, but Trump imposed a new $100,000 toll booth. I call it a toll booth. I thought that was kind of funny, Kimberly, to call it that, a $100,000 toll booth for H-1B visas, new ones coming into the US. So the Trump administration is trying to crack down on India because they're buying their fuel, their oil from Russia. And so is a lot of the EU. So if you talk to the people over there, I mean, they don't have a lot of other choice. They got to buy their oil, and it's more economical to buy it right there from Russia because of the pipeline situation. So there's a lot going on here that sometimes we don't fully grasp the whole picture of. And so this $100,000 fee that the Trump administration is putting on this H-1B visa situation. Here's what many people are saying is going to happen. Now, who knows really in the end where it's all going to go, but it's saying it's going to drive that kind of talent, that technology talent to other countries. But my take is, yeah, I kind of get it, but that I think where it's all going to go is it's going to drive a lot of talent to Canada because Canada is still an English speaking country. It's right across the border from the US. The other thing that's interesting about Canada, as you know, we're ramping up there. We're really getting going. Is everybody lives near the border of the US there. I'd say of their 40 million, there's only 40 million population up in Canada, just to put it in perspective. And I would say 90% of the people live within, a very close distance to the US border. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, there for the H-1B visa holders. So what I think a lot of companies are going to do is probably start their tech centers up there. They're going to start developing those kind of opportunities. So that's going to drive a lot of that talent up there to Canada. So we'll just kind of watch that play out in the marketplace here. The oil market still are everything's status quo as far as we can see right now, holding in the mid 60s. I think it's 64 something today. Brent's up around 68. The interesting part about the oil markets is it's there's some pressure being put on the war over there. There's still obviously a lot going on with Israel and Hamas. So you've got that friction that continues. Um, so you got these kind of geopolitical vices around the oil markets that I think if all of that were solved, there was no more war in Ukraine and Russia, and everybody was living happily ever after in the Middle East, I think you'd see oil down in the 50s pretty quick. So anyway, that's kind of my take on what's going on in the marketplace. Interest rates have come down. New home sales are back up around to a 3-year high here, up 20% in August. So pretty big news there, Jody, that I think is going to help the economy overall. So I think things are looking bright right now. Markets are still at highs, and everything else is cooking right along. So anyway, I'll pass it back to you, Jody.
You're muted. We hear nothing.
Yeah, there you go. I said, thank you so much for the information. And the best part about it is that we all control our own personal economy, and we control our personal economy by controlling our personal activity. And I want to talk just for a second about a couple of opportunities. And one is real quickly, I want to review last week because I think it was a historic week for the team. We started out at the beginning of the week that Zach and Kimberly put together the first part of their retreat. They took a group up to North Georgia, and I went up and was able to visit. And it was great fundamentals, focusing on the system. Then we came back and we came to Atlanta. And as you know, there was more activity in Atlanta in one week than I think we've had in the last 90 days to 6 months. We had, first of all, a wonderful group, a core of between 30 and 40 people that came every single day to our boot camp. And I really want to give kudos to those guys. Many of them came from a long ways. They were there, they put their time and effort in learning the fundamentals. And I think this really already paid off in a big confidence boost as well as an activity boost. I mean, I saw that last night at our BOP. We had a great night here in Atlanta, and I think it was from that event. But then each of those nights we had the Atlanta takeover, and so this is a lot of manpower, a lot of activity, working on muscles you hadn't worked on in a long time. Some of you never worked on those kinds of muscles. It was like having a leg day and an arm day and an all over day at once. You were working on both sides of your business, and we had a meeting the first night, Tuesday night in Buckhead. What an incredible event! It was the standing room only. Then we had a Wednesday night in the Marietta area, Steve Gross's office. Wonderful new people. Then we had a fantastic night at the home office the last night. The next day was a great training at the home office on Cyberzeus, of which many people attended. Spent almost the whole day there. Then another group of us drove up to North Georgia and went through the retreat again, which was just fantastic. And that's great. That means you're gaining on it. You did things that the losers they don't do, and so that was very exciting. But the key on that is to go act on all of that, and that's kind of what we want to talk about right now. Now, this flyer will go out today, but I want to give you the information right now, just so you'll know. Next Tuesday, we will be in Orlando. The Florida Takeover Part Two is upon us. Okay, so I'll be in Orlando on Tuesday night. You'll get the information out this afternoon. The flyer's being made right now. Then Wednesday, we'll be in Tampa. Thursday, we'll be in West Palm Beach. And Friday, we'll be in Miami. So we're hitting it hard, guys. Ready to rumble. So I'm so excited. So once again, you've got Orlando on Tuesday night, Tampa Wednesday night, West Palm Beach for the Fort Lauderdale area on Thursday night, and then Miami on Friday night. And we are so excited about this event, and we will be coming to a place near you. After this, we're going to I'm going to be going to Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and Denver again in mid-October, and then onward and onward. So put in your career best efforts. Become fundamentally sound. We've got a few things I want to go over as we go into the conversation today. So I want to go over just about 5 minutes worth of things that I think are very important. Kimberly's going to shepherd the conversation about the the buckets, and it's yeah, and Debbie, yes, it's yes. To answer your questions, yes, it has been settled and moved, and I'll send it to you right now. This is all based on what they wanted to do for the Miami team. But what I was going to say was I want to talk about a mindset for a second, and I think this is very important. And to me, this is really what I think is a crusade. You know, every great financial movement has a crusade, just a real edge to it. And I think that and well, then, I mean, when I get through, Kimberly's going to go over talking about annuities and the different buckets, and then from there we'll give Mauricio a little bit of time at the end because he's just working furiously on tools that are making us better every day, and he's simplifying, simplifying, simplifying. Um, but I want to talk about mindset. And I believe as we go out and talking to people that our crusade needs to be that what we're doing is not enough, that things need to change. We need to come in guns a blazing, making sure people realize that we have slipped as a nation, that we're no longer the savers that we need to be. We're no longer the mindset that we need to be. And I want to talk about that. I watched probably at least 20 to 30 good pieces today just on getting prepared for this. I kind of went down the rabbit hole as sometimes as Zach refers to it. And you know what the number one thing out of all of them were? The number one thing was that if you can fight your ego and not buy things you don't need, if you can become content where you're at, and if you can start living within your means, that's the first thing that we all got to start doing. So that's the first thing that you need to focus on as you're going in. And number one, in your lives, and number two is into other people's lives. The whole mentality of pay yourself first. That has got to become absolute, the way that it is. It's got to become the doctrine. There's all kinds of things that are out there. I think you've seen most of the examples, the 50, 30, 20 thing, which is now pretty much, I think, commonplace. And it talks about how now people making 150 to $200,000 a year are now the new, paycheck to paycheck, group that's out there. The first thing you need to do is that 50, 30, 20 is on your essentials. That's what you begin with, the 50, and then on the 30, it's going to go to savings and things like that. And I'm sorry, the 30 also goes to things you want to do that might be optional things you wanted to do along that are enjoyable. And then the 20 is things going to savings. And I think there's a huge chasm. There's a mindset of people that haven't saved anything. And when you saw those numbers, because I watched Mauricio go over these F&A cases, and there'll be these people who have lots of money. And I watched how much the average person has saved. And Kimberly showed this graph during the economic summit. She may show that today. But you know what? I think that's really misleading because I think that the reason that those numbers are high is that there's some people who've saved a lot, and it's yet most everybody else has saved none. I firmly believe this. I firmly believe it isn't like everybody's got $100,000 saved or $200,000 saved. I think it is. There's some people who've got $500,000 to $1 million saved, and I think there's a whole bunch of people who have none saved. And that's a dangerous position to be in. That's what I've seen talking to people. That's what I've seen for the mentality. And we've got to go change that. So we got to go out and have that crusade of pay yourself first. Let's go be examples of that. Are you systematically saving, $300 to $500 a month? If you're not, you can't understand how to go sell this business. And I'm not saying go do something you can't afford, but I can tell you, you'll have a hard time convincing me that you can't afford to put away $300 to $500 a month if it's important to you. Every single person that's on here. So that's my, kind of foray into it. I want to go from a mentality, a crusade of getting America back to what got us where we're at. And that is being frugal, and that is being savings, and that is living with our means. And that's something now I really feel strongly about. So from there, I'll turn it over to you, Kimberly.
Thanks. Well, I think that that is what everyone needs to feel strongly about. Our companies aren't taking care of us anymore, right? We don't have pensions. We don't have things like that. I was talking to a client yesterday and she's like, what are people going to do? And I really, truly believe that this next wave of retirees are the first ones that have had to plan everything for themselves, right? My parents have a pension. My grandparents had a pension. My grandparents had their house paid off and they lived there for 30 years, right? The stories have changed. So, what happens now when we're really truly the first generation that's had to solve for everything outside of maybe Social Security, and people can't afford to live just off of that alone? So, what's going to happen? And I think you're going to see a real sad story that our younger generation is going to catch and they're going to pick up on, and they are going to start saving. But our older generation that's retiring now, or even, you know, my age, mid 40s, late 40s, like they don't have time to make it up. And that's why I'm so passionate about talking about our story, talking about our opportunity. If you don't have time to save money, then how are you going to retire, right? Will you ever retire? We talk about it all the time as far as, you know, the 4% rule. The 4% rule says that we can take 4% of our lump sum, whatever that is, our nest egg for retirement, and we can pull from that confidently with 95% confidence for a 30-year period of time without outliving their income. I don't know anyone that retires that decides that they don't want to be retired forever, right? They don't want to retire for 2 to 3 to 4 years and say, oh gosh, I got to go back to work. I don't have enough money. So, how do we fix that problem? Number one, if I have $1 million saved in my bucket and I can only pull 4% from that, that's only $40,000 a year. No one can live off $40,000 a year, right? That's not a realistic income number. But the other thing I'll tell you is nobody has $1 million saved. So, what is the solution? I think that's what we have to be very, very clear with and very careful with at HGI, talking to people, talking to families, talking to clients, is what is your solution? We can definitely help fill in the gaps, right, on their plan and where they are right now, making sure they have life insurance in place and making sure they've got that AAS rider for the long-term care piece and all of that so they don't deplete the assets that they have. But it's still not going to solve the problem of how do I have enough income to retire, right? And in reality, I think our biggest offer that we can give them is our opportunity, because they do have the ability to create. Imagine having to have $1 million saved to pull $40,000 a year in, versus closing a couple sales a month to pull $40,000 a year in. What's more realistic, right? When you're talking to clients, hopefully they have all of it. Hopefully they have a lump sum. Hopefully they have the ability to earn money from a business. I'm obviously very bullish on my business and believe that HGI is where it is, but I don't care what they do. They have to understand that most people are not going to be able to save their way to wealth. And that's a conversation I have with them. But it doesn't mean that they don't need to save. Like Jody was saying, right? We have to start saving. We have to save monthly. So when we talk about, the pillars of savings, number one, it's pay yourself first, right? Treat yourself like a bill and automate your savings. Create a savings account. If you don't have one, do it right now. And I don't care if you're only putting $50 a month away. $50 is better than nothing, but the consistency is the key, right? So set up whatever you can consistently put away. And then as you're comfortable with that, bump it up a little bit, right? And that consistency is just going to build those habits. And savings is a habit. It's not a one-time thing. It's something that we do over and over and over again. We always talk, about our 6 steps on the financial side. Step number 3 is emergency fund. And that emergency fund is basically, a safety net for unexpected events, right? How much money should you have in your emergency fund? I think rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But the question then becomes, I always say 3 to 6 months worth of income. And I say that because most people can't afford to set anything aside on a monthly basis, which means they need 3 to 6 months of income, right? But regardless, something is better than nothing. So make sure that you're passionately talking to those clients about automating their savings and making sure that that's set up. So the one thing I want to talk to you guys about today, and we've talked about it a lot, but I feel like there was an aha moment in our boot camp last week. So I want to talk to you about that again. And I want to talk, let me see if I can, you guys have me over here with technology. So let me see if I can make it all work like I want to. I want to share my screen and I want to explain to you a very easy way to talk about or to think about. Hold on. Can't talk and type at the same time. A very easy way to talk about or to think about annuities. So when you have a client that needs an annuity, how do you know that they need an annuity? What are they looking for? Anybody want to tell me? We're looking
They
for
don't
two
want to
things.
outlive their money.
They don't want to outlive their money is one option. What type of money? Let me rephrase that. Are we looking for?
Retirement money.
Typically, when we look at an F&A, we're looking for two different things. What is that?
Lump sum and monthly money.
Lump sum and monthly money. And an annuity typically deals with what?
Lump sum.
Monthly.
Monthly money.
Lump sums or monthly money. When I'm thinking about, I'm looking at an F&A and I'm seeing what they have. Am I putting monthly money into an annuity or am I putting a lump sum into
Oh,
an
lump sum.
Lump sum.
I'm putting a lump sum
Lump.
into an annuity. And there are two purposes behind an annuity, right? One of them is just basic accumulation. They want the slow and steady growth. They want the protection against loss. They want the things that annuity is going to give them. And the other one is that pension story. The other one is the income piece, right? They want to make sure that they have a paycheck every single month for the rest of their life, which is a big peace of mind. So first and foremost, when you're looking at annuities, you're looking at basically the buckets of an annuity. And there are two different types. What's the first type of an annuity? Anybody know? Let me look.
An income annuity and an accumulation annuity.
Thank you. So we have an accumulation annuity. And we have an income annuity. Right? An accumulation annuity, I'm going to put my money in. I've got 100,000. Let's just say, actually, let's say 500,000 because that's the numbers that I've run. I've got $500,000 in my annuity, and it's going to grow hopefully every single year, but it's going to be a slow and steady pace, right? So let's just say that this money is going to grow at 6%, right? As that money grows, every single year we lock in that game. Right? And that's going to be our new floor. And let's say that it's compounded at 6% over a 7-year period of time. At the end of 7 years, if that's what we're looking at, 7 years at 6%, every year is not always going to be 6% in reality. This is conceptual, right? Then in this annuity, I'm going to have $751,000. If I want to lump sum this money out, can I do so?
Yes.
Yes, obviously at 7 years, we might have a surrender still, all of that. But conceptually, that $751,000 is available to me to pull back out. Make sense? In an income annuity, you really have two buckets inside of one. So if you split it down the middle and think about it, you have the accumulation side and you have the income side. And the accumulation side is going to work just like the accumulation annuity, right? If I put $500,000 in and I earn 6% over the next 7-year period of time, at the end of 7 years, I'm going to have $751,000 in this account, right? That's my accumulation. It's exactly the same as my blanket accumulation annuity on the other side. But my income bucket is where my guarantees come into place. So I'm going to stop this share for a quick second, and I'm going to pull up the nationwide illustration that we look at quite often. So on this nationwide illustration, I put $500,000 into this account, right? Just like the other one. So we're going to say, and I'll go back and do it in a second on the whiteboard so you can see it. I put $500,000 in this account. I have a 30% bonus on my income. So now I have $650,000. And in 7 years, I have 1.226 million, right? So I'm going to write that here and then I'll pull it back over so you guys can see that. So I put $500,000 in, and in 7 years, I am guaranteed, right? I'm not, there's no question here. I'm guaranteed to have access to $1.2 million. So let me pull my, my screen back up and see if this makes sense to you and if you understand it the way I want you to understand it. Oh, just kidding. Okay.
Kimberly,
Yes.
can I ask you something real quick? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay.
On that guarantee with the bonus, right?
Yes.
If you ever, even at 13 years, if you decide that you just want to pull your money, you do lose the bonus.
We're going to talk about that right now. And if it's not clear, I want you to ask me that again in just a second, okay? All right. So in this income annuity, think about Nationwide now, right? We have two different buckets inside of one, right? It is an income annuity, which is this big piece. But inside that income annuity, I have the accumulation side and I have the income side. Let's say that this is 6% for 7 years. Okay. At the end of 7 years, if I want to lump sum my money out, what side is it coming from? How much do I have access to based on this illustration at the end of 7 years?
Your accumulation,
Which is what?
751.
$751,000. But if I want to turn on my income, what is my income based off of?
The 1.2. Okay.
This is where my income is based off of, right? My income is based off of $1.2 million. Can I ever lump sum out the $1.2 million?
No, you cannot.
The only way I get $1.2 million or access to $1.2 million, or as if I had $1.2 million, is if I pull that systematically as income. If I have a client that is not confidently wanting income, whether it's next year or 12 years from now, I'm not writing this annuity, because an accumulation annuity is going to have better bells and whistles for them in that example. For example, F&G on the accumulation, they actually have a 17% bonus that would go on the money, on the lump sum, right? Not on the income base. So in Nationwide, the bonuses are in this income annuity are only on the income side of the policy. If you do not use income from this policy, you don't get those bonuses. You only get whatever this growth is, right? At the end of the day. So I know that it's hard for clients to understand. I assume it's probably hard for some of us to understand, but I wanted you to see the difference because it's really two different policies in one. Does that mean, so again, unless I have a client that is convinced that they're going to use income, which they will be, right? That's what they're looking for first. How long do they want to be retired? Forever. What do they care most about during retirement? Their income. Doesn't matter how much money they have in their bucket. It matters what their income is every single month, right? I can tell them confidently that in this Nationwide product or in an income annuity type product, right? But if they break that income, or let's say they win the lottery, right? And now they're a gazillionaire and they don't need the income. They still have the access to the lump sum. It's not like it goes away, right? They just don't have access to quite as much as they think that they have access to, because the bonuses are only on the income. I hope that's clear. If it's not, let's unmute and ask me questions. But I wanted you to see it from both of those buckets inside one, because I think people get confused. And I think that that you guys sometimes think you could lump sum out this 1.2 million and you cannot.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Kimberly, this, and I think this may be something everybody else is thinking. If you're talking to somebody and they don't know which is which, how would you guide them toward figuring out, you know, what are logical questions about, hey, do you need the income and that kind of
Well, I
thing?
mean, you're going back to my age-old conversations. We're taking an F&A. We are talking to
Right?
clients. We are having conversations with clients. We are asking questions of clients. If a client tells me that they need $10,000 a month to retire, and I know that they're going to get $3,000 a month from Social Security, that means I have a $7,000 a month deficit that I'm solving for, right? I'm a problem solver. Where do I find $7,000 a month? The most logical explanation, especially if we're closer to retirement and they have a lump sum, is if they have this lump sum of money, we're going to turn that into $7,000 a month or $4,000 a month or whatever it will create for them. And then we're only making up for the difference, right? So ultimately, in my opinion, we're solving for income first, always. And then we can go back and we can play with whatever's left, whatever doesn't give them that guarantee that they need to be. But it also depends on where they are in life. If I have a 40-year-old, I'm probably not going to put them in an income annuity because they're probably not looking for income in the next 10 to 12 years, right? They're probably looking for growth. They're probably looking for that cash value growth. And so then I'm not worried about the income bucket. I'm more worried about the accumulation bucket. I want that money to grow. So, but it all comes from talking to your clients and listening to them about what they want. And if they're closer to retirement and have the ability to fund an income annuity, it's because they're looking for income. It's because you're creating that pension story for them. And some of you guys have heard the paychecks and playchecks conversation. Some of you haven't, but every 2 weeks for your entire working life, most people get what? They get a paycheck, right? What happens, and they don't touch their savings because they're growing it, right? So our mindset, our psychology is don't touch these savings, right? Just work on our paychecks. But when our paychecks stop, we have to start depleting our assets. Well, depleting our assets is something that we've trained ourselves for the last 30 years not to do. So then we shrink our dreams, right? We shrink what we can do. We're not sure. Can I go on this trip? Can I not? And it's because we don't have paychecks anymore. But if we can turn our lump sums into paychecks, right? At least for our minimum necessary in our income, then whatever's left, we can have for paychecks, right? We can leave it in the market, or we can do land banking, or we can do an accumulation annuity. And as that money grows, we can take trips around the world. I don't care what you spend your money on, as long as we can make sure that your basis is covered through your retirement. And so that's what I look at when I'm looking at it, is obviously how old are you? How close to retirement are you? And then how much money do you need for retirement? Are you close? Have we gotten those guarantees? If you've got that through a pension and Social Security and another annuity or something that's already written or whatever, then you might not need an income annuity. But if you don't, I'm going to solve for income first if you're close to retirement. James?
Yeah, absolutely. This is really, really good information. I think one thing I wanted to add too that I picked up from Rob Savarese with Anexus and conversating with him, he believes the best strategy for these two annuities to determine which one to use is kind of like you've already mentioned. If you have someone that is 50 years of age or older, lean towards the income annuity because they're going to get more bang for their buck out of that plan as they gear up for retirement at 65 or maybe earlier. And for those that are less than 50 years of age, push for accumulation. And the key, he said, is that you can literally set someone up, say in their 30s or their 40s, in an accumulation through, say, North American Anexus, and be able to have them put their money in there, get consistent long-term growth over a 10-year period, go back to that client in 10 years, reposition that money then maybe into either another accumulation annuity or perhaps an income annuity. So it not only allows you to do great things for the client, but it also allows you to get additional income or additional revenue or commissions, I should say, off of helping that client become a repeat client, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
for
I also
sure.
and I also know too, for those that are looking at the nationwide for income that are 50 and older, really stress the importance too of the guarantees in that contract. The principal protection, that is, I think I'm really seeing that as being very favorable amongst the individuals that are gearing up for retirement, because they may not have all the money, but they're interested. They want to preserve it. They want to get that growth out of it. They want to get that income out of it. But at the end of the day, someone could put their money in there, let it sit for 10 years, not touch it, not even kick on income, get through the surrender period, and they still have 100% principal protection. Now, obviously, if the markets change, the contract value could decrease, but at the same time, as you mentioned at the beginning, they can still realize some gains on that annuity, even if they don't kick on income.
Yes, but if that is their goal, don't write an income annuity. It doesn't make sense to pay for the riders. It doesn't make sense to pay for all of those things if they aren't going to use it as income. All we can do when we plan for our clients is listen to them, educate them, and do what's best for them at this moment, right? Based on what they say. Life changes. We all know that. So as life changes, then we need to revisit with our clients and make sure that that's what they're looking for. But I don't want someone to think at the end of 10 years or 12 years, they can reach in and pull out 1.2 million when really they can reach out and pull out 751,000, right? I just want to make sure that I'm very, very clear with my clients on how each works. Lump sum comes from the accumulation side, income comes from the income side. I like to tell my clients, if we're doing this income annuity, I want you to think about it as if you have no more money, right? If you put $500,000 in this annuity, in your brain, I want you to assume that that's gone away and it's going to pay you whatever this. Let me pull it back up really quick and show you what it is projected to pay based on this illustration. I want you to forget about the $500,000 that you put in here, and I want you to think about it as $58,000 a year, $57,910 a year. That's how I want you to think about it. Now, if you die, if you pass away, if you actually needed access to the lump sum, is it there? Yes. But if you do that, then your 58,000 goes away, or it's significantly altered, right? And so it's not a have my cake and eat it too. It is, do I want lump sums or do I want income? And most people want income if they understand it, at least until their income base is settled and is solved for. Any questions about any of that? They're trained, Jody. It's all
Well, I
good.
think they're getting there. And I tell you what, I'm really glad you went over that because the last thing you want to do is misrepresent something, even if it's unintentional. And I think that this can be that way sometimes on one of these things. It's interesting. You got to realize that this is a great product either way. I mean, under any circumstance, it's a good product. It's just not, you know, with numbers you can market, and you can make things look the way you want. So make sure they know it's a great thing, and it serves the biggest issue, which is two things. And this would be a great way to segue to Mauricio for a couple of minutes. And Mauricio always does a good job, but he does a tremendous job when he just talks sometimes. When he doesn't even go over technology, he just lays it out. He did that at the one of our events in Atlanta last week. He just spoke, and it was tremendous. And in about 2-3 months ago in Atlanta, he was just talking and he stopped because there's only really two issues. One is making sure that you don't die too soon. The other is making sure you don't live too long. And really, that is at the core of everything that we do. It is the very essence of everything that we do. And we solve the one issue by making sure they're properly covered. But on the other side is what Kimberly was saying, is that they have an issue of where they're going to need income for the rest of their lives. And this is the premier product for that. So that serves that product, and that takes care of that. So anyway, I think it was great information. So thank you very much, Kimberly. All right, Mauricio, give you a few minutes.
Hey, everybody. Absolutely. I'm always excited to share, what we're doing in terms of simplifying a process. I'm sure that what I'm going to share with you today is going to earn me a sit down with the great Tim, which is a good thing to do. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to show you. Just, I guess you'll be very happy with what you'll see. Your brain is quickly going to take you to these places because, I would say Zach or Kimberly, myself, even Tim, if he's still on the call, I don't know if he is, I haven't checked, but anybody who is gathering a financial needs analysis, like the system says, typically the clients will come in and they'll give you their life insurance policies, their banks, right? They'll give you information. And the more accurate, that, or the better that you can analyze the data you are being provided, the better the advice you can give, unless you just want to walk into a place and sell a policy for, sell them a term, do the dime, sell the term, or figure out they can save $300 a month and sell an IUL. You could do that. But eventually, you are going to be running into the clients that have assets, right? 500,000, 250, 3 million, or whatever. And I believe that these tools will help you, even if you're like brand new. I want you to think about this for a second. Just let me give you an idea. Think about what ChatGPT has done for all of us, as an example, right? You have this knowledge in your pocket. Another analogy, another thing I could say is, even though you're not an attorney, through net law and their technology, you can actually offer without uh, putting yourself out there as you are an attorney, because you're not. You can't give legal advice or financial advice if you're not a financial advisor. But there's technology is making things easier. And here's what I mean by that. I think images always show a much faster picture. Since we are in the, and I'm going to just kind of blow this up a little bit for you guys here as I do this. Hopefully you can see. Let me remove this out of here. So we're all in the data gathering of assets. I'm here in the financial needs analysis, right? Clients, retirement planning, goals. You guys are familiar with this. And what I was coming through is being able to collect information from, let me give an example. So I have this client here called John Smith. This is the wrong one. Sorry about that. Let me just open up the right one here. This one. So we have John Smith, right? And John Smith's got $2.9 million just in a portfolio. And think about this, also banks and insurance. If you have insurance policies, you have bank statements, you have 401k statements. Because look, in many cases, when you're thinking about putting money into an annuity, right, the client still gives you a statement, right? And can you, if you were to, let's say, okay, let's add those holdings to your F&A, or should I just add it the amount? I can just go to the top and say, well, here's the amount is 2.9 million. I'm just going to put that there. You could do that. You could do that by keeping it basic. But what we just did right now is you can use you have 3 or 4 ways of using this, which is the basic info only, which you just basically say, do you have a 401k? Yes. What's the amount? This. How much you contribute? That. 2, you can manually enter holdings, or you can use Plaid Sync, which Plaid gives you real-time value of all the anything bank. Like if clients have a bank information, bank account where they have money going in and out, and you want to have like accurate what their expenses are, you will be able to link with Plaid or AI. So what we did with AI is basically uploaded that $2 million plus statement, and in 30 seconds, takes about 30 seconds for it to give you everything here. And you basically just click it and it would input it right into the F&A with one click of a button. Now, what that allows you to do, basically, right? You got the money properly placed by name of the owner, the asset, the company, the symbol, blah, 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 blah. This whole thing. You can save it, and that took about 40 seconds. In the real world, with the way that most people are doing it, that takes hours sometimes. Now, up to here, all you're doing is just collecting the information where things are to be able to do things later, like how aligned is it with the rule of 100? Can you identify how much of it is in, um, let's say, uh, bonds, right? Because you could maybe replace, like some of the most successful annuity producers that I found is when they take a look at something like this, they say, okay, well, you have a 30 or 40% bonds. And if we replace bonds with an annuity, with the right annuity, that increases, volatility. It expands the longevity. It could even reduce the fee. It does a lot of different things just by removing the bonds and replacing it with an annuity, as an example. But how do you figure that out rather quickly? And so once you have the information, right, we know that we can go into the product finder and look for that information. You'll be, and we don't have time to do it right now, but you'll be able to basically identify what could be wrong and what product you can actually recommend to the client. And this piece, Jody, was basically just to let people know like what we're doing in terms of what used to take, I don't know, I would say 30 minutes to an hour just punching in information for accuracy to just a 30-second process. And you know, you don't again, you don't have to necessarily do it that way, but if you are provided with the information, just know again, you could keep it basic by simply you manually adding the asset manually, or you can just say, I want to input the statement and upload the statement, find the statement, and run the AI. The AI will definitely run it. It will extract it. It will know how to read it and is going to place that asset where it belongs. Because in the end, what you have is you have taxable, tax deferred, and you have tax advantage. So you can just upload the statements, boom, 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 boom. If they're bank statements, if they're insurance statements, if they're investment statements, if whatever statements they are, the AI will read it and it's going to immediately place it properly. Like if you take a look at what happens when you're loading an asset, right? You say, okay, who's the owner? In this case, it's John. What's the asset type? If it's going to be a savings account, it only gives you it asks for the information that's relative to the savings account, right? If it's a stocks, well, it asks for information relative to that. If it's I don't know, whatever you want it. If it's bonds, then it will just ask information relative to the bonds. And so you could manually do it, or you can just kind of did it how I did it. 30 seconds, it imports the whole thing in here, and you just have to fill in whatever information that you need to complete. With that being said, because that was just on the tech side, like what we're doing is you are providing information. If it's financial information, I know the goals, the objectives, the when is the client thinking about retiring, all that you can gather manually. But then they give you a bunch of different statements, and it really can take a long time to load them into any system. And but now, luckily, you see, I uploaded that statement and it gave me all of the holdings by piece in 30 seconds. So I think this can be very valuable. And I know eventually, like for somebody like Zach, for somebody like people that are in the wealth, the WFS, they can see the value of something like this even more. But I want to go back and share with you a few things of what Kimberly was talking about, because I think this could help. Just forget about the speed of loading data. That's all great, and you're going to have those 4 ways of doing it. You choose how you want to upload your client's information into the FNA. My experience is the more accurate you have information, the better. And as a matter of fact, if you want to refer somebody to Zach, I can basically refer to Zach, this client, because I have the information. I can't give investment advice, but I can refer to Zach, and then I would have the information of the holdings, and that would be very valuable to anybody that is in that in that capacity. But again, here I go to clients, right? And if we want to find products or even learn about products, because I think what Kimberly was talking about today is align the product with the objective of the client. And we have people with a lot of experience here. These are the six objectives that I think people, uh, I would say six reasons why people kind of use an annuity, right? There's people that want income now. So if you want to study out of the 175 annuities that we have, right? You can go in here and just say, this is for training purposes. This is not necessarily that you're recommending to a client. It's for you coming in here. Maybe you have an F&A already there and you want to learn, hey, what out of all the products we have, which are there that can allow for immediate income, like less than 12 months. Well, we have F&G 123, and we have benefit control from Allianz. So the F&G and the benefit control, these, if you have a client that needs income within the first 60 days, 90 days, 3 months, 4 months, these products allow for income immediately. Now, that's not the vast majority. That's why the list is so small. But out of the 175 products or 125 products that we have, we know that these are income now in the FIA space because you are looking at the fixed index annuity products, right? It would be different if you were looking at single premium immediate annuities in the SPIA side, because those are designed for immediate income or some other income annuities, right? Which, by the way, we will have that. The MIGAs, the SPIAs, what do you call them? Product finder. Because this is a FIA finder, so you have to remember where you are and what you're looking for. But it just occurred to me that if I want to kind of go in here and say, okay, we have 125 products in our portfolio. How many are there that can allow me income now? So you can come in here and kind of learn about that. What about those that are income growth followed by income? Meaning these are products that were primarily that are going to rank at the top because they are for people that are looking to get an income, have some growth, have some competitive growth, even with these roll-up rates, and then generate an income for life. They're not looking for walk away with the money. They're looking to get an income. So again, you go to that, you can pick a term. All you do is add an amount and you can run it. And it's going to give you, you can study all of these by how many matches do we have. There's a lot of products that actually offer roll-up rates or that can have income, but maybe the top 4 or 5, we have Nationwide, New Heights, Agility 10, Accelerator Plus, and the like. Some of them are repeated because obviously we know the New Heights 10 and the 9, have those options. And so on and so forth, right? You have these different products that they could do that, and you can learn a little bit about them here, and then obviously go to the carrier and learn even more about the product. But at least this sort of gave you a sort of a starting point of what products in our portfolio are for growth followed by income. Now, which ones are best designed for growth followed by full access? This is pure growth, but I don't want to commit to income necessarily. I want to be able to have access to the cash value, the surrender value of this annuity whenever the surrender period is over. And you could go in here and choose the different surrender periods, less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or 10 or more years, right? So you can also play with these terms and you get some of different products. But, we're kind of going with 10-year plus terms. And you can run this and you say, okay, well, these are some of the products that we have that are more for growth, pure growth, followed by walkaway. So you have a different set of products now. You have the power accumulator, the power select, the peak accumulator, from F&G. You have a lot from the F&G in the portfolio. Corebridge, right? So these products are for that. So you can spend a little bit of time here. And again, you could kind of if you look at the way that we built this, is to ranking for the objective. That's really what it is. So it's not like ranked by A plus. This is an A minus, right? F&G, but it's ranked because it's got 6 growth features versus the Corebridge that got 5 growth features. And Can we continue to improve the algorithm? Of course, we'll do that as we continue to enrich this. But I just wanted to point out that you could literally by this evening have an idea what my top five for growth by accumulation that I have access to. Even if you never showed this to a client, this is actually more honestly for you in preparation for the client, right? Come in here to quickly, man, maybe before I call my upline necessarily, right? If you kind of already passed your training and, because the best thing you could do is match up sales for sure. But when you're out there and you're maybe you're having to do the matchup sales now. Maybe somebody's looking up to you for that training sale, and you're like, man, should I call my upline, or maybe I can let them do their thing, right? Be more productive. I can come here and figure out what those top 4 or 5 products that are for growth, followed by full access. If we're going to recommend that to a client. And needless to say, you could go on to the others. I'm not going to do them. You can do the homework. What's growth followed by income options later? Man, this one's like the flexibility. It gives you both options. And then people sometimes have a portion of the money that they know they're not going to use, right? They'll say, well, look, I got a great pension. I've got Social Security, and I've got other investments. I have this IRA, I have this money that I know I'm for sure, I'm guaranteed I'm not going to use this. So is there a product in there that will blossom if I die, right? Well, obviously the life insurance would be one of the best ones, but in terms of the annuity, is there an annuity that, if I would need it for income, it's there. I know it's there, but if I don't need it, which is the most likely outcome, I'm not going to need it. Can this really, that growth become a death benefit, right? So there's some products that grow really aggressively, had the cap, the participations are so awesome that if you keep them for X amount of time, it's like that accumulation actually becomes the death benefit. So it's great for legacy. So I want to find out what those products for legacy, what annuities for legacy are there, and what about those for long-term care? There's some phenomenal products, and the insurance companies will develop more and more of these annuities that have long-term care benefits in them, right? And so if you want to figure what out of the 125 products that we have, which ones rank the top for that, you can go here and do that. So I know we're out of time, but I think this was relevant to the training that we saw today. I believe that this will add or accelerate your learning, and then all you got to do on your side is once you see the products here, just kind of go in the carriers and do their training. Because you've got to do that product training per carrier before you can actually begin to recommend the actual annuity. Don't submit an annuity if you don't have not the product training for it, because then you're going to have to take it again. But Jody, with this, I'll turn it back to you. And sorry if I overcomplicated.
What? Hey, listen, Mauricio, I'm so fired up because first of all, that last piece was a nugget. Because if you're getting ready to get into annuities, get back with your upline RMD and say, what do I need to do to be qualified to do the proper paperwork and all. And let me tell you why I'm so excited about what we saw today. It gives you, all of you, the rank and file, the excitement that you could go do what Kimberly said, which is do nothing but go prospect and go find new wonderful people, do quality F&As, and we have everything behind you to take care of you from there. I mean, literally, well, you could go, in that case, get a client who's got $1 million, $2 million, all the way down to somebody who wants to start saving $300 or $400 a month. We got everything you need. And it should give you incredible confidence to go open your mouth, to be excited, and to talk to that one more person a day than you were going to. So thank you so much. I'll see some of you on the 1:30 call if you have realtors or CPAs that will be on there. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. And hey, get ready for Top Gun.